What's up, everybody? Mahan13. Wait, why did I do that? I was wondering why that didn't turn on for a quick second, but never mind. What's up, everybody? Mahan13 here. This is welcome back. Now then, just a little more fair warnings for all of you is that I am going to be canceling one of Deku Happy Omnitrix, and in turn, I'm replacing it with one of the new, basically, like I said, one of the glorified fanfics that What If had basically become, with a new story called My Omni Hero Academia. Well, Omni Heroes Academia, since there are two main characters. But long story short, there's going to be a new character that me along with some other people have helped come up with. But there's going to be a new character. Him and Izuku are both going to show the role as the main character. Now, Izuku will be normal and canon, while this new main character will get the Omnitrix. We're still working on a little bit more, but by next week, the first episode of that one will definitely be popping up. So be prepared for that. Now then, let's get into what y'all came here for. What if Deku had Sagi powers? Or, I really need to come up with a better name. I'm not gonna lie. But now then, this takes place right back with all of the others of Class 1-8. Like I said, no one was seriously injured in this world. And so, things kind of get back to normal for everyone really quickly. Izuku and All Might do get scolded by Inko when they get home, though, but everything besides that is kind of normal, including Aizawa telling them about the sports festival, since, well, nothing will really change there, but during the next 2 weeks, Izuku personally trains with All Might, basically not only testing his percentage of One for All, but also coming up with new ways to use his powers. Now then, Katsuki and the others also train, or I guess the Chaos Group? Huh. I need to come up with a group name for them, but I'll do that later. But basically, so everyone gets to where they are, a little bit more stronger than they can, and finally, the sports festival happens. Now then, things go like this, normal to canon, since again, things wouldn't really change about the story. But let's get on to the race then. Look, I'm gonna keep it completely honest with you. This comes down between Suku and Katsuki, who both decide not to use any chaos abilities, and just make it a fair race. Look, I won't even lie and tell you that anyone else, in terms of the race portion, is significant, because they're not. The moment the race starts, Izuku and Katsuki are the first to, well, basically boost out, leaving behind a yellow and blue streak as they run. Now then, let's get to the zero pointer. When they get to the zero pointer, Izuku decides to ride out the arm before spin dashing right through its head, taking it down almost quickly and effectively, with him then catching up. With him then basically spin dashing in the air, which this is a new move of his, he likes to call the light speed dash. What Well, it's still a work in progress, but he's calling it the light speed dash. Basically he's building up his own kinetic energy with his spin dash before launching himself, giving him a greater boost of speed, along with making him glow blue slightly. Not only catching up to Katsuki, but outright surpassing him, with Katsuki throwing an explosion chaos arrow at him, which quickly gets blocked with Izuku making a barrier of wind, along with him then activating One for All to shoot back some air pressure. Well, basically shoots back some small air pressure blast right back at him. Well, back at him and at his feet. Well, more specifically, the ground to throw him off before immediately using his boost of speed to take off running. Now then, we get to the chasm. I forgot what they called it. I'm not gonna lie. Which Izuku, with all the momentum he has, just straight up jumps over it, followed by Katsuki, who's right on his tail. Now then, the two actually meet in air, with them throwing, basically them clashing with a few blows. A punch, a kick, a block, an explosion, followed by them both just hitting each other with, well, Izuku using wind and Katsuki using his explosions. Now then, once the smoke clears, Izuku is the first to somewhat fall while Katsuki keeps resisting. With Izuku again saving himself with air pressure blast that catches him up to Katsuki. Now then, they're right at the minefield now, while everyone else is still halfway through. Well, they're just making it to the chasm. Izuku decides to do something he finds crazy but fun at the same time, breaking off a piece of one of the robots, and then proceeding to use it and throw it down at the landmines right in front of Katsuki, causing a massive explosion that he also then proceeds to calculate just how much pressure it would take for him not only to run past the explosions and landmines, but to trigger them as well. And with that, Izuku takes off right in the middle, right after leaving Katsuki to explode, purposely making sure all of the landmines go off as he's running to keep Katsuki in a well, consistent wave of explosions that leads to him taking the victory and securing number one. With Katsuki coming in as number two, followed by Shoto. But that's how things go. Now then, Izuku gets the 1 million points, and it's time for the cavalry battle. And let's get things started. Now then, everyone groups up around the same as in canon, except Mina and Kirishima are with Katsuki from the jump. Basically imagine everyone that does have powers, and if they have the power of a character, well, Sonic character, they basically group into teams. Team Dark, Team Hero, Team Dark, stuff like that. And so, things change here. Kirishima's on Izuku's team, and I was about to say Izuku was on the running, but then I remembered he has to be the top. And so, who we have on the bottom is Ochako, Kirishima. Damn, I forgot who else was on his team. I'm not gonna lie. The cavalry battle is so non-important. But I won't lie and admit, I'm just gonna go ahead and skip this. Izuku keeps his headband though, for well, obvious reasons, because he's keeping it. I won't lie now. But so Izuku is keeping his headband and things like that. But we can finally get on to the battle, which is what probably everyone will really here for. Now then, first off match is Izuku versus Shinso. And look, I won't lie to you, this is a one-sided slaughter. There's no way. Hell, it was already one-sided in the original. Except now Izuku has backup powers, he's stronger now, and look, Shinso gets knocked out of the ring really easy. I won't lie to you, it's knocked out pretty fast. Now then, things go similar to the canon again for a lot of characters, since some are stronger and some are about the same. Todoroki and Sero. There we go. He's so not important. I almost forgot his name. Oops. But Todoroki and Sero, that goes the same as the original. Shoto doesn't use that much ice since Endeavor is a slightly better father in this world. Slightly. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. And so that conversation with him doesn't piss him off too bad. And in turn, Sero just kind of gets taken out normally instead of a giant wave of ice. So, good for him, I guess. And now, we can move on. Well, we keep moving on. They win, they lose. Now then, so Bakugo versus Uraraka. Things of this fight start out ragingly unsimilar, as the moment this fight goes, Otako, who's again been growing up around this guy, so she knows his moves, and thanks to being around Izuku for so long, obviously she knows notebooks. Which is also a bigger difference in canon. While she still uses Izuku's strategy to help, the main difference is that she knows Katsuki in and out. And so, the moment the fight starts, Otako immediately summons her hammer, slamming it as hard as the ground she can, basically shattering the arena immediately. Shooting out multiple debris that Katsuki kind of dodges. And basically, she was hoping for that, as she activates her quirk and immediately swings her hammer to the side, launching all the debris at him that he explodes. Which gives her a complete opening to come in and smack him with him, well, not only blocking, but still getting sent back far enough. And also makes him have to dig his feet in the ground to stop himself. Now then, she does still try the grab method, but he's also not stupid enough to fully rely on that with who Katsuki is. Again, he can still not only fly, but also he's about damn near the same strength as Izuku. So she's playing this smart. She knows that making him float wouldn't be the end-all be-all, so she's not trying that here. Instead, she's trying to overwhelm him to get him to fall out the ring. And so she constantly swings her hammer, uses her power, along with even dropping those giant meteors again, well, rocks again. But again, this is even more so as a distraction for Katsuki. That leads her to actually come in and hit him with the hammer, and for a second, almost seems like it's gonna knock him out. But here's the thing. Katsuki spin dashes and launches himself up in the air, with him then using his explosions and also showing everyone a new move, Howitzer Impact, coming right down at Ochako and blasting her straight out the ring and sending her flying into a wall, which she gets up from, obviously, since Amy is really strong and people don't give her credit for that. But Ochako gets up a little hurt and has a few burn marks on her, but besides that, she's really fine. So, this ends the fight. Ochako with a ring out, and Katsuki moving on to the next round. Now then, eventually we get to Izuku versus Shoto. Now that Izuku's not just shattering his bones here, but he is just outright moving around Shoto. And this fight is pretty similar to the canon. Only difference is that things only really change when Shoto finally decides to use his fire. Izuku convincing him. Izuku then deciding to charge himself up with One For All, finally deciding to use a 100% smash. But him not really caring it's going to break his arm, as he wants to go all out against his friend. So along with boosting One For All to 100% in one arm, he jumps over the massive spike of ice Shoto sent out before spin dashing down it, kind of basically cutting it in two, flying down while Shoto sends out his flash fire fist, with the teachers obviously having to step in to stop them, causing a massive explosion, even bigger in canon that fires Shoto out the ring, and Mizuku is left standing in the ring with a broken arm, smiling at the fact that he was able to technically save Shoto. And after he's declared the winner, he jumps down to go help his friend up, and they walk to the infirmary together. Just talking after everything. Now then, we get into the next round. Kirishima versus Tetsu. I don't know how y'all expect this to go with Kirishima being Knuckles, but it goes about as well as you think for Tetsu. Ugh, stupid train. I really hope y'all can't hear that. If y'all can't hear that, I'm sorry. I thought I would cut it out, but apparently not. If you can. It's a train by me. But this fight goes about as well as you can expect it to do for Tetsu. Because barely a few minutes in, he gets knocked out the goddamn ring. Moving him on to the next round. Now then, we have Katsuki versus Knuckles. Well, Kirishima. Well, this is after he takes out Tokuyami. Now then, let's get into this fight. Katsuki starts the fight off by just homing, attacking, and jumping around Kira. Basically bashing off him a lot of times, for Kirishima eventually swinging at the ground, shattering it. Basically, he's copying a little bit from what Ochako was planning to do, except he's not following the same strategy. As he starts punching the falling debris at Katsuki, making him dodge them, and eventually running in to get a solid good punch at him, sending him flying back slightly, which leads to him getting a Chaos Spear tossed at him that explodes into one of Katsuki's explosions. Then following by the two both spin dashing at each other, clashing. And once they come out of the forms, they're basically pressing against each other, shattering what's left of the stadium around each other and pushing it back. And basically they're in a stalemate right now. But Kirishima eventually gets the upper hand, crushing Katsuki's head and hitting him with a vicious headbutt that breaks his nose. And while Katsuki's in the air, he grabs him by the leg before whipping him all the way up and slamming him right back down to the ground. With Katsuki immediately shooting the launch an explosion at his face. And basically they do this back and forth for a while. Kirishima is outright overpowering Katsuki, but with his skill and speed, he's able to keep up. But eventually, after Kirishima pushes Katsuki back, where he's damn near out of the ring, Katsuki finally decides it's time to stop holding back. With him telling Kirishima, telling him that he's a really good fight, but he promised himself that he'd be made it to the finals to fight Izuku. And so, he's sorry for this, but he's not losing here. As Katsuki turns to the inhibitor rings, them falling off and him getting a surge of power that, well, gets everyone in the stadium to look on and awe at the, basically get everyone to look up at all at the power aurating off of him. Katsuki almost immediately decides to end this right away, running at Kirishima, tackling him, and hitting him with a Chaos Blast. The next thing anyone knows is a giant red aura fills the stadium, and, well, when it's over, and when they look, Katsuki is standing over an unconscious Kirishima, with him walking back to put his inhibitor rings on before passing out. Well, with this, Katsuki is declared the winner, and he's being moved to the finals, where Izuku is, currently. Now then, after Katsuki is healed up enough, well, after both of them are healed up, the finals take away of Izuku Midoriya versus Katsuki Bakugo. Now then, the two almost immediately take aim at each other, basically clashing around the entire arena. For what most people can see, it's just a blue and yellow, a blue and green, a bluish green and a yellowish red blurs, just kind of moving all over the place, clashing and really the only day they can tell if something is happening is when either a piece of the stadium is destroyed from an explosion or a hit. While in turn for Katsuki and Izuku, they're going about as all out as they can against each other, with Izuku having 15% of One For All activated, even if it's slightly hurting him, and Katsuki still having his inhibitors on, but he's going all out. Two trade blows from punches, kicks. Zuko gets Katsuki in a basically clash, them throwing a punch that Katsuki dodges, barely. Basically, these two are in a full-on equal battle, moving around and about, destroying the stadium around with each other. Now, basically, well, not basically, but eventually the two end up taking a somewhat step back from each other, jumping away from each other, letting out deep breaths. And this one, a lot of people can actually see them. They're somewhat bleeding and they're somewhat bruised, but they're smiling at each other because they're both enjoying this fight. And eventually, Katsuki tells Zuko that enough holding back. If we're gonna go all out, with him dropping his inhibitor rings, using about all the power he can. And Zuko decides to raise full cowling up to 100%, basically ripping his body apart right now, but he doesn't really care. The two almost immediately launch at each other, and the moment they clash, a giant shockwave that not only knocks Midnight back, sending her flying into a wall, but also shatters the concrete of the stadium, along with breaking the glass of the water box that the teachers are in. Immediately, now then, this kind of gets people a little scared, since also, again, just from the sheer power alone, the two then immediately chain more blows, clashing fist to fist, shattering, causing basically mini earthquakes in the stadium. Zuko can feel his bone punch basically breaking and shattering, and he's not even throwing a full-on attack yet. Eventually, he gets the upper hand, kicking Katsuki in the jaw before spin dashing, hitting him again in the face again, going in the air and launching down the toy smash that shatters his arm. The air pressure alone from when it hits Katsuki, who barely has time to make a chaos shield, basically ingrains him in the ground, basically smushing him in it like a pancake. But Izuku isn't done yet as he goes down immediately, screaming Sonic Arrow as he boosts right down, once for all, fully active, and Katsuki immediately gets up, clashing his own power in one hand, and with this, a massive explosion is let off again, even stronger than the one that Izuku again, launching more people back, along with basically shattering the stadium, the mess, and along with causing it to actually rain. And basically, when everyone looks down at the crater, well, not even really crater, just the hole that was left behind, they see something walking up. And they see it's Izuku. He's bleeding. Both of his arms are broken. And he's dragging Katsuki with him before passing out himself. And with this, Izuku Midoriya is crowned the winner of the sports festival. And, well, basically after everyone's healed, they hold the stadium and stuff like that. It's really destroyed, but after the water clears up, Izuku is getting his golden medal with Katsuki receiving the number 2 spot. And with that, things are mostly normal after this. But while Izuku and Katsuki are in the infirmary, Tenya gets a call from his mother. And what he hears shatters his soul. And with that, everybody, I'm gonna call it right here. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Mon13 out.